Welcome back, everyone, to another incredible episode of Chat with Dan. Now, before we start, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to checking this out. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, follow, it helps a lot, and again, thank you. Have an incredible day or evening, depending where you are, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe. All right, so welcome back, everyone, to another incredible episode of Chat with Dan. For today, we have on the show the incredible, the amazing, the superstar, Julie. Julie, how are you today?
I am fine. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm super excited to chat with you and happy to be here.
Absolutely. I mean, what better way to have an epic day than to be chatting with someone as awesome as you? You know what I mean?
Oh, thank you very much. It's very
Absolutely.
nice.
Now, for those who don't know who is the incredible, amazing Julie, please tell us who you are.
Who am I? That's such a great question as a life coach. Who
Right?
are we really, right?
Mhm.
I am joy and lightness and no. So I am somebody who, I'm a mom. That's probably the biggest thing that I am these days. I'm a mom of an 18-month-old beautiful baby girl. I own 3 businesses. So I'm an entrepreneur, business owner. I own a dance studio in Los Angeles for kids and teens called Inspire Dance Studio. I am a life coach, an ICF PCC certified life coach for adults. And I am newly, as of this week, a published children's author.
Wow. Okay.
So that's what I do in the world. Um, and I think I'm someone who's motivated and silly and playful and mission driven, and just wants to experience my best life and encourage others to step into their best lives.
There you go. Perfect. Now, let's go back. Now, also, before we start out, I do want to thank those who are watching this. Thank you so much. If this is your first episode, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, follow. You're going to like it. I'm super sure of it. If this is your 5th one or 6th one, keep watching them, spread the word. I mean, let's share this video to friends. And now back to the interview. Let's go back in time and tell me where this whole journey began.
Let's see, the whole journey. Well, I grew up as a performer and a dancer, and it's interesting with each of my businesses.
Mhm.
I didn't set out to start a business. So I just was following that call of what lit me up.
Okay.
And the businesses sort of came out of nowhere in a way. So the dance studio, I've been a dance studio owner for 20 years. 13 years on the East Coast, 7 years out here, if that's the correct math. Math is not my strong suit.
Mhm.
And that started, I was living in New York, mainly doing acting,
Okay.
but I had trained as a dancer my whole life. And I had this pivotal moment in my life where my agent called me with an audition for a television show. And it was at the same time as my favorite weekly dance class that I would go to. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to go to this audition and miss Brian's class.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I thought, well, what does that mean? That if I don't want to do the thing that's supposed to be my dream, what does that mean? So I thought, well, maybe I'm supposed to be a dancer. And at that point, I was training at a pretty high level, and the kids in my class were like on tour with artists and dancing on Broadway. And so I thought, all right, well, I'll start auditioning for more dance stuff. And then I booked some pretty exciting things right off the bat, and didn't love the rehearsal process.
Yeah.
And so I thought, what does that mean? I just want to be in class, learning and growing. And, my mom was like, well, maybe you could start a dance studio. And I was like, oh, mom, no. Like I had this big belief system that those who can't do teach. And so I thought, well, maybe when I retire
Yeah.
and, cut to, I lived in New York during 9/11, and that was just a life-changing moment, and stayed for about a year and a half after, and then just needed a break from the city. So I was going to take like a little 3-month break,
Yeah.
and decided to do some master classes, and found that I loved teaching. Like, it shocked me. I just loved um, being able to like impart my knowledge and see people's eyes light up when they could do something that they couldn't do before. And then I was like, oh no, I can't do the thing my mom wants me to do.
Yeah, of course.
So I kept just extending that stay, and that business kind of just kept growing. People would say like, oh, would you be willing to also add a hip hop class? Or would you, could we do a semi-private ballet class? And so I kept saying, well, I'll stay another 6 months, and then I'll stay for the summer, and then I'll direct a show, and then I'll go back to New York. And I kept pushing that off. And then eventually, about a year in, I was like, okay, I think I do this. I love it. But at the time, I was in a suburb on the East Coast, and I was like, I don't love living on the East Coast,
Mm.
or in the suburbs. And so I spent another decade doing that and really engaged in the work that I was doing there. But anytime I would have, every summer, I would go to a different country and I would just explore the world. And that was the way of like satisfying both needs of like growth and all that. And then I made the decision 7 years ago that I was going to leave my very comfortable life, my studio back east, the house that I owned,
Mm.
the relationship that I was in at the time, and I was going to come out to Los Angeles, where I had lived in Los Angeles briefly as a performer as well, and start a dance studio out here. And I actually took over a studio from someone who was retiring, and just be in a place where I could grow as an artist and I could grow as a person and be back in a city. And when I first came out here, everything crashed and burned, and everyone thought I was crazy. Everyone's like, why are you leaving? You're happy, secure. I had a very happy life. There was nothing wrong with my life, but I
Yeah.
just felt like it was stagnant, and I didn't feel fully fulfilled in my soul. And so I came out here, and like I said, everything crashed and burned. The studio I had taken over was in worse shape than they had indicated. Um, they were a little dishonest about the floors, and they were not properly sprung dance floors. I tore 3 discs in my spine in the first like
Wow.
2 months that I was there.
Yeah.
I couldn't dance. I couldn't. My relationship. So my ex at the time was supposed to be able to move out. He was in the army, couldn't get a transfer. Just everything went wrong that you could imagine. And I thought, oh my God, what have I done? But I think what I've learned as a coach, and I'll get to the coaching in a second,
Yeah.
but what I learned as a coach is oftentimes we need to totally like disrupt and tear down
Mm.
the life that's just not really that's like our life, in order to really create this new foundation of what will become your dream life. So at the time, I did what I knew how to do, which was just work to absolute exhaustion to pull myself up and get everything working and running and toward my definition of success.
Yeah, of course.
Somewhere within, I think that first year, I stumbled upon 2 coaches, life coaches, who had graduated from the school that I have what ended up going to years ago, and a few years ago, and I had this initial conversation with them. We call it a discovery call, where you just kind of have your initial complimentary conversation and see if it's for you. And at the end of the call, at the time, I was working 7 days to absolute exhaustion. The studio was growing. It was back on track, but very slowly. I had been in a 5-year, my ex did end up coming out here, and I'd been in this 5-year living relationship with him where it was like really good and really bad and really good. And we were just never going to get off that wheel. And that was kind of my life. And I had this one conversation with them, and at the end of the call, I was like, oh yes, I love this stuff. This like resonates with my soul, but I don't have the time. I just bought a new house that was a little out of my price range, and I thought, like, if anything breaks, I'm in trouble. Like, I don't know if I have the money for this. And I said, but I'm definitely going to do it when I get to this stage in my life. Like, you will be hearing from me. And it's so funny now, because I hear all the time, like from prospective clients or people out in the world who say, like, we all say like, well, when we get this, then we can have the life that we want. And they really just sort of pushed me to take that leap of faith and sign on with them. And I remember getting off the call, and my ex was like, they're just sales pitching you. Like, they just want to sign you.
Yeah.
And I felt a little bit of that, but then something in my soul was like, you need this. Like, this was this is like a serendipitous moment for you
Mm,
to shift things.
mm,
And so I signed on for a 6-month contract with them. And within 6 months, I set an income goal at the studio. I tripled it, and I cut my work schedule in half.
okay.
Um, I got out of my relationship with my ex in the best way possible. We're still friends. He moved back east. And that allowed me to have time and space to build friendships and connections out here, and to relax and have downtime and explore my new city. And that all happened within 6 months. And that's just the external stuff. Um, Everything inside of me, it was like a homecoming, shifted. And um, and I was just in awe of the work and what had happened in such a short time, that I literally was like, everyone I know and love needs to have access to this work. Like, everyone needs this. Everyone in the world needs this. And so I said to myself, now that I have a little extra time, I'm going to go to school for a year and get certified to be a coach. And I literally did not even intend to start a coaching business. I just wanted to delve deeper into the work, and then to
Mm-hmm.
be able to share it with people. And when you're training to be a coach, if you're going through the International Coach Federation, which um, so in our country, anyone can kind of say that they're a life coach, and we're trying really hard. So there's an international organization
Yeah,
that has really high level codes of ethics and tests and exams that we have to pass, and so we're trying to shift that here in this country, where coaches will need to be certified through
absolutely.
this. So that's the hope. But anyway, so in training to become certified, you actually have to have clients, and you have to have paying
Yeah,
clients,
of
and you
course.
have to pass these exams. And so I started delving into the work, and was like, once again, it was like, this is like a calling. This is like um, speaking to my soul, and watching people transform their lives and put
Mm,
down like these disempowering stories that they've been carrying for years, and step into their power. It was just so exciting. Um, and at the same time, I was starting to have um, some more long-term kind of chronic injuries from just dancing so many years. And so I started this coaching business that I've now had for several years, in tandem with the dance studio. Um, and then cut to the book is a whole other separate story. That's the children's book is based on my daughter's. So my daughter was an 8-year IVF journey, so
mm-hmm.
in vitro fertilization. I I was unable to. I was a single mom, so I initially had to, when I realized, like, I've always wanted to be a mom, but when I realized, like,
Yeah,
the
yeah, I
clock
can
is
understand.
ticking,
Yeah, I can understand. Yeah, of course.
I needed to. So I got donor sperm, and then what I found was my body just wasn't working. So I had to. My cousin carried my baby. I had to do this, like a very alternative birth situation.
Absolutely.
And when my daughter was born, I wanted her to understand that she and I were destined to be together, that she's my soul baby, even though she came to me through all these different
Yeah,
ways, and that our family was just as magical as like a traditional family, or and that she wasn't, kind of like missing anything. And so I wrote a magical birth story, like a children's story, just for her. And I shared it with a couple of people. So I shared it with my cousin who was adopted from Korea, and my dear friend who grew up in foster care system since she was 3. And they both cried and said, like, I wish I'd had a story like this
mm,
to talk about how, like, family, my family that I ended up with was like my soul family, like my destined to be forever family, and that love makes a family, and not necessarily genetics or whatever the
yeah,
situation is, or birth. And so again, like, I felt this calling to And then I have a 7-year-old neighbor who came over when my daughter was an infant, and my daughter was crying. And she said, I think she might be crying because she doesn't have a daddy. And I thought, whoa, like she's going to be introduced to that when she grows up. And I don't want her to feel like there's less love in our family.
Yeah.
And so it just prompted me to publish that story. And I'm planning to write more stories for all the different types of alternative birth and family stories out there, so that people can see and normalize their experience in their
Hmm.
family. And then people who have traditional families, like I grew up in a traditional family, can say, wow, like there are other families that have so much love. So that's how that started. And those are my 3 businesses. So none of them did I set out to start a business, but I was really just listening to that, like, that whisper of my soul saying, this is what lights you up, and you got to follow it.
Wow.
So that was kind of a lot.
Wow. No, I mean it's yeah, wow. You know, I mean it's overwhelming, but the fact that you manage, yeah, like what amazes me is the fact that you didn't stop, you know, that no matter how yeah, let's say complicate, you know, or bumps, you know, along the way,
Yeah,
you
there were a lot
manage,
of them.
yeah, you manage to keep up, you know, because I have this I mean, it happens, right? And also some people might just want to stop, you know, or try to go other way, or they're just
Yeah,
gonna stuck there for the rest of their life. But like the fact that you, yeah, like the fact that you managed to keep moving forward. I mean, I'm super sure that it wasn't easy, of course, that it was a pain in the
yeah.
butt, but like you managed to be where you are right now. I mean, I mean, that's impressive. I mean, wow.
I've learned from the experience that really nothing is impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're playing for that deeper connection to the life experience, and you can create that external stuff that we were talking about, um, but it's only going to have meaning if the way you're moving through life um, excites you, motivates you, connects you with
Mm.
the journey, um, and that whisper in your soul.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like once you start to understand what what you want to do, everything start to get better. I mean, of course, that for you to discover, you need
Mm.
to try. You know,
Mm.
as I was saying that I like before this, I was in multiple jobs here and there to besides surviving, but also to kind of discover like what kind of the thing was that I kind of wanted. You know, and
Mm.
yeah, I mean, at the end when you discover that, I do think that everything tends to get better.
Yeah,
Challenging, absolutely, but it's worth it.
yeah.
You know?
The other thing that I'd say, just for like your audience out there, is I do sometimes have clients who come to me and they don't know what that thing is yet.
Yeah.
And they just know, like, the life I'm in isn't working. It's just not satisfying, or there's too much overwhelm and stress, or you know, so it's okay to not know what your thing is too. Um, and there's a way to begin to experiment and experience life, and to tap into opportunity, um, and find your own path if you don't know what that path is.
Yeah.
Um, but you know that the path you're on isn't the one. But in order to find that path, it's like if you're on a hike and you're like, this path is arduous. It's, it's challenging. It's full of tumbling rocks and I don't like it. You have to be willing to get off that path, or at least take a little detour and recognize, like, that path's going to be there, like,
Absolutely.
but it's not working for you. So
Yeah.
why are you hanging on to it so tightly? And are you willing to try a path and then go, this isn't really my path either, how about this one? Or and how fun it's like going to a playground and going like, well, the slide was okay, but the swings, like, and if you're kind of just like, if you're sticking with the slide because you know how to you feel safe on the slide, and you're never going to get to experience flying in the swings or
Totally.
and so I just wanted to point to that too, because some of us do know what lights us up and others don't yet. And that's okay. And there is something. Um, and it may not even there is a life that you are meant to live
Mm.
that will have you standing in an inspired life where you wake up and are excited to be you and connect and do what you do in the world.
Yeah, and also that age is not important, you know.
Mm,
I once interview a voiceover actress that during like 30, like for 30 years she worked, you know, in a corpo and everything, and then her kids grew up, you know, her kids were able to sustain themselves. So she was like, okay, I'm gonna start doing something different. She started doing voiceover. A couple of years passed, and right now she like I think a couple of months ago she got nominated for best audiobook, something like that.
mm,
And that was incredible because I was like, wow, I mean, everything, I mean, it doesn't, of course, there's certain stuff, you know, I mean, of course, that you can't be a professional high performance athlete on your 50s, of course, you
mm,
know, but there are some things that you can do, for example, right? That like perhaps you love sports, then you can do something about it, you know, like my point here is that sometimes we focus only on one thing, but
mm.
when we stop we have but when we stop we can see certain varieties on the same thing, you know what I mean?
New chapters.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
also
new chapters.
totally, and that yeah, that it doesn't matter how old you are, you know,
Mm,
if you want to try something new, go ahead and do it.
yeah.
And like my example here with the sports is that okay, perhaps you are not able to perform, you know, in a super high level, but perhaps you can be a commentator. You know,
Mhm,
you can create your, I don't know, like your own sports channel. You know, you can
mhm,
study something like that, and you'll be in that area that you want to be. You
mhm.
know, so yeah, I also want to encourage that to be that to let people know that you can do whatever you want, you know,
Yeah.
that it
And
doesn't
we
matter how.
don't also have to make our passions our careers.
Totally,
So you
exactly.
can, but you don't have to. You can have
Yeah,
a career that's sustaining and fulfilling in some ways. Like you said, you have that balance now sort of between the two, between your job, I guess we could call it, and your
and this
podcast
one
job.
exactly.
And you don't have to do things at high level. Like I remember as a kid, I used to take horseback riding lessons, and then as an adult, I just wanted to get back on a horse, so I started taking lessons again. And from this place, I tend to my nature is kind of like type A perfectionist, which is not it's not something I'm proud of, and it's something that I recognize that perfectionism is about things that I'm no longer interested in my
Yeah,
life. It doesn't mean I don't still strive to hit goals and am motivated, but that's a part of my life that I'm disentangling. But anyway, so when I decided to take horseback riding lessons as an adult, I I went into it with like, I don't need to be great at this. I'm not going. This is just something that brings me joy, and it allows me to like quiet my mind and be present with this animal and learn fun things and challenge myself. And so sometimes connecting to what lights you up doesn't have to be
yeah.
the thing you do as your career. Like it can just be, or even I'm finding like my daughter's now at this age where she's starting to like be able to do activities like coloring, and we do
Okay.
finger painting. And my grandma was, and my mom's an amateur artist, but she's actually pretty good. And my grandma was a painter, and really talented. And I don't have that skill set, but I love like I'm having so much fun finger painting with my 18-month-old, and we like put them on the wall, and I'm literally like I joke with people that finger painting is my medium. I finally found my medium because it just brings me so much joy. Like it's just fun to like
Yeah,
get your fingers dirty and make a picture that, maybe looks like a 7-year-old made it, but the activity, the act of being in that moment, um, and being in that moment with my daughter, it's just like it totally fills up my soul. so that's just another thing to point to is like, um, your life can look like a variety of things. It could be one thing, it could be several different, it could be a palette of things. And when you start shifting your belief systems and putting down the disempowering stories, or the I can't do this, or this isn't for me, or I'm too old, or
Yeah.
any of those things, and start just looking at what brings you joy on a simple level, and it's usually simple things. um, I remember, so my old dance studio, we were a performing arts studio, so we had dance, music, theater, and that studio started by audition for high school, really talented high school kids, and then it kind of like grew
Mm.
into a full-fledged, all different ages and,
Yeah.
and levels. And so some of the kids who are now adults who graduated from, we had like a conservatory a higher level conservatory program within the studio. And some of them have been on Broadway, they're in TV shows and movies. And one of them became a famous, for a moment in time, although he writes music now for artists, but he became like a famous rock star. And I remember when he was in the beginning of that, he had like a platinum duet with Taylor Swift, and his
Wow.
band was like touring all over the world, and he was like famous for a moment in time. And like I said, now he writes for other artists. But I remember he was home for Christmas, and he and some other of my students, this is when we were or alumni, came over, and we did like a game night at my house. And it was so fun, and we were just like in the moment, we were just laughing our heads off and eating good food and just being with each other. And then he actually left, like, I don't know, his sweatshirt or his jacket or something, and came back the next day, and we were having this conversation about he was talking about like his life at that time when he was at the height of everything. And he said, my whole life I wanted this was what I wanted since I was like given my first guitar at like whatever it was, age 6.
No.
And he said, now I'm in it, and like it's not making me happy. And I love music, and I love, but this lifestyle is not making me happy. And he's like, I don't know what will make me happy, but it's so confusing when you like spend your whole life thinking this is the thing.
It turns out that it
And
wasn't.
yeah, and he said, like, what do you think would make you, like, we were just having a conversation about happiness, and I was like, it's so interesting because I could bring out the list of like, well, this would make me happy, and I want this and that and this in my life. And I said, but you know what, I experienced the utmost happiness yesterday when we were just all at my house having a game night.
No.
Like that was happiness. That moments like that are enough, more than enough. And so that's another reminder is like, so in coaching, we do sort of, we're future based. So we look at, what do you want to create in your life? What's working, what's not working? What would a really fulfilled life look like in these different areas of your life? And then where are you now in the present? And how do we, what's missing or in the way? How do we bridge that gap? And a lot of times, when we look at, well, I'm here, how do I get to this place in my life? It seems daunting, or like, oh, I'll never be able to do that. And so we break everything down into milestones. Like, instead of worrying about how do you get to here, let's look at like, what would getting
Mm.
to here mean and look like? Maybe it means, starting on the like smaller gradients and sort of building your way that way so that you can be standing in this really fulfilled life. And the trick is, or not even trick, but like, so the work that I do, we work on, there's the foreground and the background. So the foreground are projects, and projects can look like anything. They can look like starting a new business, or reaching, something like that. Or it could just look like putting boundaries in my life, learning
No.
to make requests of people. It could look like making peace with aging, or it could look like lots of different things. They can be tangible things like, like a romance project. I want to find my partner.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the foreground. But the deeper work is the background work, which is shifting how we're showing up for ourselves and who we're being in the world, and shifting from our survival mechanisms, our egos, our disempowering stories or beliefs, or what our culture tells us, that comparison thing, into who we truly are in our essence, like who we were born to be, our power source, listening to the whisper. So a lot of us hear the whisper, and then as soon as we hear the whisper, we think like, ooh, like when you first watched that guy, that with the podcast, and you were like, wow, that looks so fun, and that lit me up, and like, I kind of want to do that. What normally happens for most of us who aren't engaged in our self journey or the work, I say the work, like working on ourselves, and having a support to do that, is, as soon as we think this could be, it's followed by all the reasons why it couldn't be. That other voice that goes,
Mm-hmm.
well, why do you think you're special enough to have
Yeah, of
that?
course,
Or,
of course.
well, that's going to be a long journey, or there's no guarantee there, or all the voices that kind of like halt, put the brakes on. And and so the background work is really learning how to, the way that I describe it is, we all have these, like, I call them survival mechanisms, and they're like these little characters almost. I think of them as characters, that that kind of run our lives, but they're not really us.
Mm.
And so like I do an exercise with my clients where we actually name, once I get to know them well, like once we're like a month or so into coaching, we'll do an exercise where we actually name our survival mechanisms. And some of them are like powerless pleader, exhausted savior, exhausted superwoman, like, so doing
Okay.
everything out in the world, if only hearted hermit. So these different kind of like silly names, but like, um, um, I'm just thinking of so many. Let me turn off that. And then we also give our essence names, um, who we are in our essence. And the way we actually do that exercise is we look to those who know and love us best, and we ask them some questions, and we sort of like generate who our essence is from the people who, see the best in us, as opposed to, because that's often the harder part for us to see.
Yep.
And the way that I describe it is like, in the beginning of a coaching journey, oftentimes it's like your essence, we're in a car, and your essence is like in the back seat, duct taped, doesn't have a voice,
Mm.
but is like, like, don't turn that way, I want to go this way.
Yeah.
And your survival mechanisms are driving the car, running the show, saying, oh, be quiet, you'll get us into trouble. Like, we're not going to take that turn. And then eventually, as you're doing your work in a coaching experience, you start to empower yourself to take the tape off, because you really are in charge, and start saying, guys, I don't want to go this way anymore. And then you eventually say, you know what? I'm gonna let you guys ride in the car with me, because I'm used to you guys. You're kind of comfortable. I still a little bit think I might need you for some warnings, but I'm going to start driving the car.
Mm.
And then you start driving the car, and those guys are still talking, and you're like, okay, I appreciate the feedback, but I'm still going to go this way. And then eventually you're like, get the F out of the car. I don't need you guys anymore. Or you can say to them, you can relate to them almost as children who need love and are just looking to protect you. Like my dog, for instance. Whoops, I almost lost my table. This is my dog. He's tiny, but he likes to sit right at my window and protect me from the world outside. So he'll like bark at like anything that he thinks is a danger, as if he could really take them on. And so I have to say, like, I mean, I don't have to, but like, the way that I think of it is like, thanks for protecting me. I'm okay now. Thank you. Now could you stop barking?
Yeah.
Like, which doesn't always work with my dog. But it's kind of like that with your survival mechanisms. Is they're trying to protect you. They're just going about it all wrong. And so, like I said, there's the projects, the foreground, and then this background work. And it's the background work to, in tandem, putting those two together is really what allows people to almost become totally different people than when they started their journey in coaching. And yet it's also like a returning home to who they always already were, but maybe didn't fully know it.
Mm.
And it's so cool and it's so powerful. And like, I have a coach myself. I will always have a coach. And just, it's just, we spend a lot of time building proof that we can't have the life that we want. And now I've had several years of building proof
Yeah.
between myself and my clients that we can have more than the life we ever imagined for ourselves. And in such a deeper, more connected, more self-expressed way.
Mm.
So anyway, I get so inspired. I get so excited talking about the possibility of what's available to all of us in this journey that we're on, if we're willing to be vulnerable and courageous. And courage doesn't have to look like diving off the high dive.
Yeah.
It can be just putting your feet in the pool to start, and then taking a dip, and then working your way to the high dive. Some people come to me right away and they're like, I can't do this anymore, I'm ready to dive off the high dive, let's do it. Let's blow up my world, kind of like what happened to you. Your world blew up and then you created this new world that now inspires you, has this balance, has you supporting other people out in the world, and also them inspiring and supporting you. It's super cool.
Absolutely. Wow. And like, let's say that I want to start, I want to start this whole coaching process with you. How do I do it?
Yeah. So the first thing that I invite everybody to experience is what I would call a discovery call. So we would set up, usually I like to do Zoom so we can see each other,
Yeah, of course.
But I'm also open to a phone call if people prefer that. And we just take a look at a number of different things. What would your dream life look like if you believed it was possible? And you may not believe it's possible, but what do you think that might look like? Or what might that encompass? Or who might you be? Or how might you feel if you were living your dream life? And we look at different areas. So we look at what would you want more or less of in different areas in your life, whether it's romance or career or friends or passion projects, or and we get really clear on that. We look at what's working for you in your life. The other thing I listen for in initial calls is like, what are people telling themselves are the reasons why they can't have the life that they want? And oftentimes the biggest things that I get are, I don't have the time and I don't have the money. Those are the two biggest things that people believe are in their way for experiencing the life that they want. It's never the thing that you think it is. It's always something underneath. So anyway, to answer your question, so first we would have a discovery call. We'd see if it feels like a good fit. If I look to see, like, in order for coaching to really be supportive, you have to be willing to be vulnerable and courageous. And again, like on any kind of gradient, and to make a commitment. So it's not so much about the start, because the start, it's always great in the beginning. You start and you're like, yes, I'm going to change my life, and you're coming into it and you're ready and you're excited, and then you're going to hit some obstacles, or hit upon something that you didn't know was in the way,
Mm,
or you're holding on so tightly to a belief system that, like you said, I think you had said like your job had some benefits, but so many costs.
mhm.
And so it's really, and then we just, and then if it looks like something that's going to be supportive, then we would enter into a coaching agreement. So all of my clients, so I have private clients. I just actually wrote a group 8-week workshop, which I'll talk about in a second. But the private clients have the option to sign a 6-month or a year contract, which again is another thing that comes up for people, is like, oh my gosh, that's a big commitment.
Yeah, of
Well,
course.
it's a commitment to yourself. And what I can say is like, if that feels big, start with the 6 months. But it really, it's untangling a lifetime of beliefs that some of them, or stories that may not even be ours, that we were taught in our culture, from our families, from our religion, from our, and I'm not looking to change anybody's core values or belief system. I'm not here to teach anybody anything. It's I am not the expert in your life. So I'm here to hold the space and support you in choosing um, what's going to fulfill you, and what your most inspired life will be. Um, and 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 so, yeah, and then we enter into, and we look at, like I had mentioned earlier, um, eventually, like within the first month or so, we'll create a project or projects that you'll play for, with clear actionable milestones and actions and accountability. So another thing a coach does is we create accountability. We help
Mhm.
people set up structures for fulfillment, so that it's not like, because a lot of people say like, this is what I want, I just don't know how to get there. The
Yeah.
how seems to be where sometimes people give up, or just don't know what to do. And so, so I'll support my clients in creating like actionable plans with structures, so that when they do hit an obstacle, it's not a quit. Um, and and then we do that background work, you know, and really have you learning how to um, be confident, deepen your self-love, your self-care, your trust, putting, sometimes that looks like putting down control, um, um, and getting into action from a new place. Um, yeah, I don't know if I answered the question. Did I answer the question?
I think you
So the
did.
so the
I
first
think you
step
did.
would be just setting up a discovery call, checking out what coaching is, what it isn't. Is it something that that would be supportive? Um, and then the other thing is, so most of my clients right now are private clients, and I do have 2 spots open right now for new clients. And then I just wrote an 8-week workshop that I haven't really put a date on yet for like a start date. That is obviously a shorter commitment. I call it like the beginning of, like, sort of the beginning of the work.
Mhm.
And that right now, I'm just kind of, I think the way that I want to do it is create just like a list of interest with people who might be interested in the 8-week workshop, and then looking at what days and times work for everybody, and getting that up and running as well. Um, and that's for people who maybe aren't ready for the bigger leap, but want a smaller leap into the game of life and what's possible. Um, yeah. And so, and you can find me via my website, which is mostinspiredlife.com, um, or through my Instagram, which is mostinspiredlife.juliepaige, and it's Paige. My Instagram, and this is why I'm having a podcast, is like, I'm not a huge fan of social media. And I really, so I'm trying to shift that from my own experience right now. I don't, we're told all the time that in order to be successful in our businesses as entrepreneurs and business owners, we have to have a big presence on social media. That has
Mm.
not been the case for me. I've been very successful in each of my businesses, with the exception of the new book, because that's brand new this week. It's
Yeah,
just
I
come
mean,
off the
yeah,
printing press.
that makes
But
sense. Yeah, of
um, but
course.
with coaching, but I have 2 successful businesses,
Yeah.
um, and I've relied very little on social media. However, I'm trying to shift my own personal relationship with social media from kind of like a frenemies to friends. And one of the ways that I've decided to do that is to do what I love, which is, instead of me like sitting myself up on a video and talking about coaching to myself and then putting it on a post, or finding a quote that inspires me and sending it out into the world with a little post, which just isn't fun for me. What I love is these conversations. I love having authentic connection and conversations, and hearing what's in the way for other people, and how can we shift that, and just learning what lights other people up. And so that's how we came to be. One of my former clients who's great with social media, I actually recently hired her to reach out to people and book me podcasts where I can have these conversations with real people and get excited and hear where other people are, and grow my audience and let people know if you're feeling like life is or life is stressful or not fun or overwhelming, there's choice out there. There's possibility. And I can support you. And I'm not the only coach out there. I know
Absolutely.
other wonderful coaches, and there are other ways to access the work. There are other podcasts and this podcast, and ways to be inspired and begin your journey. And to just not give up on yourself in life. There's always a choice, and oftentimes the hard things that we're going through, life is oftentimes happening for us, not to us. And it's just hard to see in that moment, because we're holding on so tightly to something that's not working for us, instead of letting go and looking toward what could work for us, or what do we want. So yeah.
What can I say? I love it. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, Julie, at the end, I love what you do. It's so inspirational as well, and it's amazing. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
super sure that our next conversation is gonna be about the thousands or even millions of people that rely on you, because it's incredible what you do. It's inspirational, and as I was saying before, I mean, we need the fact that we can get inspired by somebody else's story. I mean, from your story,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's impossible not to feel inspired and be like, and if she could do it, I can do it too.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I love it. And yeah, keep doing what you do. Keep showing people that that everything it's possible, because you are showing everyone, and that's amazing. And I also want to thank those who are watching this. Thank you so much. Or if you are listening to this, thank you as well. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Amazon and Google too, I think. Make sure to go follow Julie in all of social media.
Cool.
On the description below, you're gonna find all of her website, her Instagram, everything, so you can check it out. If you wanna see more about what she do, I'm gonna leave also on the website. You can check it out and see more about it. It's amazing. And Julie, again, thank you so much for making this happen. It's
Thank you.
such an epic and amazing chat here.
Thank you. And thank you for being you in the world, and following your light, and creating a platform where other artists and people can come and be seen and heard and inspired. Yeah, thank you. This was so much fun.
Absolutely. So I'll be seeing you in the next one. Keep being this incredible, amazing, super person you always are.
Thank
And I'll see you in
you.
the next one.
Thank you. Sounds great.
All right.